Roguelike is a subgenre of role-playing computer games traditionally characterized by a dungeon crawl through procedurally generated levels, turn-based gameplay, grid-based movement, and permanent death of the player character. A selection of the best roguelike games, as well as games that come very close to this genre. Tales of Maj'Eyal, a graphical roguelike with an incredibly large selection of races and classes, procedurally generated worlds, and tactical combat. Despite seemingly and completely untrue simplicity compared to other similar games, Tales of Maj'Eyal initially focused on such classic projects as Atom. Therefore, along with the ubiquitous element of randomness, it also contains a lot of obligatory familiarization. Otherwise, it will simply be impossible to play. Stats, modifiers, resists, effects, and other nuances that are interesting for many hours of study by exclusively hardened role players. The Enchanted Cave 2, an easier-to-learn, but no less interesting roguelike with extensive procedurally generated locations, crafting, multiple playable characters, an advanced skill tree, and hundreds of items that can be crafted, bought, dropped from the enemy, or found in a stash. Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, another representative of orthodox roguelike games, which appeared in 2006 as a continuation of Dungeon Crawl and is currently one of the leaders in this segment. The main feature of Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup is support along with the ASCII interface for a more understandable and convenient graphical interface, as well as mouse support. Caves of Kood, a hardcore project trying to revive the genre in its original form. Therefore, it can only be recommended to the most seasoned and incorrigible fans of roguelike games. Set in a post-apocalyptic setting, Caves of Kood offers a vast in-game experience built around interacting with a deeply developed interactive world and its inhabitants, as well as a very rich character creation editor. Slay the Spire, a wonderful game from independent developers Mega Crit Games, which combines elements of roguelike, card game, and tactical RPG in equal proportions. For this reason, the gameplay of Slay the Spire turned out to be unique in many ways, tactically diverse, interesting, and non-repetitive. Rogue Legacy, a two-dimensional platformer with roguelike elements, the gameplay of which is based on two features: random map generation and the obligatory death of the main character, after which the passage will begin with a new character, a descendant of the deceased hero, who inherited from him certain external features and wealth collected during campaigns. In 2020, the world finally saw the sequel to this wonderful roguelike, albeit in early access. The graphics became more colorful, and the descendants became more diverse in terms of classes and diseases. The essence remained unchanged. The player will try to clear the castle from all sorts of monsters, and after death, this business is inherited. Dungeons of Dredmor. Roguelike is a game that comes very close to the traditional principles of the genre in terms of game mechanics. At the same time, it contains, although not of the best quality, but still a full-fledged graphic image, as well as a completely understandable interface, inventory, a menu with the characteristics and skills of the character, and other typical RPG elements, which makes Dungeons of Dredmor accessible not only to experienced roguelike fans, but also to all other players, perhaps just starting to get acquainted with the genre. UnEpic, a parody game, the plot of which is a funny banter over many features and phenomena in the life of fans of hardcore role-playing games, which at the same time is also not devoid of well-constructed and interesting gameplay, in which there was a place for many intricate rules and tactical nuances that are important, but far from always obvious. The main feature of UnEpic, in addition to an unusual concept and old-school 2D graphics, is an impressive amount of game content and an element of randomness present in literally everything, which makes each passage of UnEpic unpredictable and unique. Risk of Rain is the golden mean between platformer and roguelike, each launch of which will be completely different from the previous one, because almost everything here is randomly generated. Of the amenities, I would like to note solid pixel graphics, a lot of enemies, bosses, game items, an ever-increasing level of difficulty, several gradually unlocked game characters, an extensive system of achievements, and permanent death. The sequel moved to 3D and received the long-awaited co-op, but remained just as complex and unpredictable. Risk of Rain 2, a cooperative action game that offers to explore a dynamically changing world in the company of friends and methodically destroy the monsters inhabiting it. Everything for the sake of loot, which will help you make your character stronger, faster, more dangerous. Procedural generation and a huge amount of content are the components of success that provided Risk of Rain 2 with sales that were unexpected even for game developers. And this is a really addictive action game that will give you many pleasant hours in battles with monsters. Pixel Dungeon is one of the simpler yet incredibly popular roguelike games. It offers a completely standard set, exploring random locations, collecting useful items from defeated enemies and chests, fighting various monsters, and overcoming traps. At the same time, the game has an intuitive interface and simple mechanics, which, apparently, was one of the main factors for its high popularity compared to other incredibly complex and intricate roguelikes. Don't Starve. This surreal parallel world survival game should definitely appeal to fans of roguelike games. Don't Starve is able to please with a large and open, procedurally generated world, where magic is merged with unusual technologies, a variety of bizarre creatures, often very aggressive and dangerous, an advanced crafting system that allows you to build and create various objects and structures necessary for survival, and much more. At the same time, the player is given almost no help or tips here. Survival depends solely on his research abilities and rational thinking. The Binding of Isaac, an indie game with roguelike elements and a top-down shooter, in the center of the events of which was the boy Isaac, who escaped to the basement from his mother, who went crazy on religious grounds, ready to sacrifice him to God. Here, he will have to meet with his materialized fears, presented by surreal-looking enemies and bosses who randomly populated randomly generated levels. In total, the game has more than 50 types of enemies, 20 bosses, and more than 100 different useful items that give Isaac additional abilities and useful bonuses, as well as changing his appearance. Enter the Gungeon is a mixture of roguelike and top-down shooter in which the player will go to the mysterious Gungeon dungeon in search of an ancient and powerful artifact. The gameplay includes clearing floors, fighting bosses, and searching for various weapons, of which there are over 100 different types. There are both ordinary firearms and absurd weapons such as a mailbox, a beehive, and much more. The game is considered one of the best representatives of its genre, for its hardcore, diverse gameplay and attractive pixelated visual style. Hades is an unusual roguelike game, all because you have to play as the son of Hades, the god of the underworld, who wants to break out of the shackles of his father's tyranny and find his mother. It is not easy to do this. You need to fight other hellish creatures and gods, and after death, the hero finds himself back at home and listens to his father's ridicule. The theme of Greek mythology in Hades is used to the maximum. This can be seen in the elements of the gameplay and environment. At the same time, the game will also surprise you with dynamic battles taking place in picturesque and creepy locations. Star Renegades. Roguelike games are notable for the fact that they are not similar to each other. They often have an intriguing idea at the root, and developers experiment with different mechanics. Star Renegades is also surprising. It's a tactical roguelike that sends the player to a fantastic future. The gamer will have to assemble a group of renegades who are destined to stop the evil empire, which only does what destroys the dimensions one by one. The gameplay is permeated with an interesting plot, and the battles are made in a turn-based format. The developers brought all the mechanics to mind, for which the game received hundreds of very positive reviews on Steam. Spelunky. We put on a helmet, stock up on ropes and bombs, and set off to explore the ancient temples in the charming Spelunky roguelike game. In the role of a miner who also loves to seek adventure on his head, You have to go down deeper and deeper into the caves in search of ancient treasures. However, instead of the desired gold, you can stumble upon local inhabitants and various traps, and death, as the genre believes, sends you to the very beginning. The games are notable for the fact that you can change the structure of the level using bombs. Wouldn't you like to pass by a dangerous snake? Or is the exit right under your feet? Not a problem. Just make an explosion. Really, try not to blow yourself up. Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a 2D roguelike adventure with hardcore gameplay, which, as you understand, is typical of the genre. In the role of a headless corpse that comes to life at the beginning of each playthrough, you have to clear the levels, slowly and surely making your way to the main boss. This meeting will not bring joy to life, because the final opponent is an order of magnitude stronger than all the previous ones combined. The game is not devoid of humor, and the battles turned out to be quite dynamic and spectacular. Dead Cells also boasts a branching level system. At each stage you can choose which location to go to. Thus, each passage will be different from the previous one. Othercide. The isometric indie strategy, Othercide, is of interest only by its appearance, but the case does not end with a shell. Controlling an army of warlike girls, the player will plunge into a gloomy and dull world, captured by grotesque monsters. The goal is to kill them all, but this is very difficult to do. The player will have to manage a team of characters and participate in tactical turn-based battles, where the death of a hero will become an irreversible phenomenon. The gameplay will make you sweat, but the interest caused by a deep storyline makes you experience suffering again and again. BMP, Bullet Per Minute, is a rhythmic first-person shooter with roguelike elements that invites you to devastate dungeons infested with infernal monsters. Everything is the same as in other games of the collection. Random dungeons, an impressive arsenal, several characters, difficult boss fights, and the chance to die from one attack. The game is inspired by the shooters of the 90s, so get ready for fast gameplay. What else draws BPM is the dynamic rock opera soundtrack, which makes the passage much more fun. Rampage Knights. Arcade action game with simple and stylish 2D graphics, but challenging gameplay. In the role of a certain hero, pirate, barbarian, mage, warlock, and others, the player will go hunting for monsters in an enchanted forest, and he can do this either alone or with friends in cooperative mode. Roguelike game contains elements already familiar to us: random generation of terrain, an abundance of weapons and equipment that falls randomly, as well as difficult battles. In Faster Than Light, the player will take the helm of a spaceship whose purpose is to save the galaxy. This is an unusual simulator in which the gamer will have to monitor the state of the shuttle, overcome various dangers, and shoot from all guns when they see the enemy. The gameplay is complex, as you also need to manage the crew members. The galaxy is created randomly, and irreversible decisions, which can lead to both permanent death and success, have to be made almost constantly. Faster Than Light is one of the most popular roguelike games with tens of thousands of reviews on Steam. If your favorite game is not included in this list, write in the comments. Thanks for watching. Join this channel to get access to perks. Subscribe, watch our other videos, press thumbs up, turn on notifications, and you will always be aware of what to play today.